Hey guys, welcome to Friday cooking here at Pantry Living. I'm really going to try and stick with this, so let's hope it lasts. So last week we took some items to a thrift store. I discovered this. Look at that. Low carb slow cooker book. I've had a slow cooker pretty much my whole entire adult life. I never use it. The only thing we've ever really done, occasionally I make a stew or we cook the meat the way I did the other day. And I decided this is the time. I have a lot on the go, and this is going to save time and make life a little easier, or so I'm told. So we're going to give it a shot. I'm excited to get through some of the recipes in this book because there's a lot of good ones. You can see I've already earmarked or tagged a whole bunch that we're going to try and tackle. But anyways, I'm digressing. Let's get to the recipe. Today, we are going to be making spicy fruited lamb. So I don't know if you remember, but in the last freezer challenge video there, we were taking out some lamb meat and we took out shanks. 4 of them exactly, which conveniently is what I need for this recipe. So I'm super excited. I've actually never really cooked shanks before, never tried this recipe. So you guys are just along for the ride. Hopefully it turns out good and hopefully you'll try it at home. And once again, as soon as I start doing some sort of cooking, in comes, oh, Mr. Black Kitty. Hey, this is Abby. He always sounds like the starving cat in my videos. So first thing it says to do is to brown off our shanks. So we're going to sprinkle them with salt and pepper. I am just kind of finger, amount. And then I'm going to flip them over and we'll do the other side. Another little bit of the pepper. There we go. And then we're going to dredge them in flour, put 2 tablespoons of oil into our frying pan. I'm using olive oil. And then we're going to fry them up, turning them both sides. Now, one thing I will say about my flour. So as you know, we never usually consume just the straight flour. Any recipe that calls for flour, I usually half it with almond flour. So we're going to be doing 2 tablespoons of organic flour and 2 tablespoons of almond flour and dredge that in that. So you obviously can do this recipe however you feel. Now, while that meat is browning, we're going to get our fruit ready to go into the slow cooker. You're going to want a 1/2 cup of dried raisins. I guess raisins are dried, obviously. So 1/2 cup of raisins, 1/2 cup of dried apricots, and I'm going to chop them up because we tend to buy them in whole pieces, which again is ridiculous because I always end up chopping them up. And then you want a 1/2 cup of dried prunes chopped up. Now I don't have prunes, I have dates. I always view it as they're pretty much the same thing, so that's what we're going to be using in this. I think it'll be pretty tasty. They might be a little bit sweeter, but it will definitely work. Once we have all those ready and cut up, we're going to start assembling stuff into the slow cooker, and then our meat's going to sit on top. So into our pot, we're going to put our 1/2 cup of apricots, however you choose to say it. Our 1/2 cup of dates or prunes, whichever you choose to use. And our 1/2 cup of raisins. Now I'm going to go through the next 2 ingredients because I'm subbing out things here. So you want 3/4 cup of broth. Now the recipe says beef broth. I'm using lamb broth. I think you could probably put any broth, really. I mean, there's a lot of flavor in this, so it wouldn't matter. Whatever you had handy will work. The next ingredient after the broth is 2 tablespoons of a sugar substitute, is what they say. Now, as many of you know, we use that good old green powdered stevia that we grow right out in the garden. And if I put 2 tablespoons of this in it, it will be disgustingly sweet and plant tasty. That is one thing about the stevia green powder. If you use too much, you'll know it and you'll taste it. It's lovely in teas, things like that. Ground up like this, I would almost say 1/4 teaspoon. They say a full teaspoon equals 1 cup of sugar. I don't find that to be 100% accurate, but the one thing I do find is if I put too much in, I get a little bit of a planty taste along with that sweetness. Not saying that's bad, but it just has a different flavor. So we're going to go with the 1/4 teaspoon that I always go with my stevia powder. And if we need to add a little bit more when we taste that gravy at the end, we'll do so, but I think it'll be just fine. So I'm just going to run through the next ingredients. I'm going to cheat and use my book because I don't want to mix it all up for you. So we've just done that sweetener. Then we're going to do 2 tablespoons of vinegar, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1/2 teaspoon of ground allspice, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. So that's all your spices and everything in there. we're going to then set our shanks on top, and I guess we just let her slow cook. I better just read through the instructions one more time, and I'll come back if there's anything we need to add. Then we're just going to give that a stir, kind of get everything sort of mixed in. And then we'll set our brown shanks on top, like so. Hopefully they're going to fit. We'll turn the other way. There we go. That's it. So now we just clip our lid down on there. My slow cooker's in a bit of rough shape. I think it's almost time for a new one if we're going to start using this all the time, which I'm really excited to try and at least attempt to do so. Now it says you can either do 5 hours on high or 9 to 10 on low. It's already noon, so we're going to do 5 hours on high and see how this turns out because I'm not a good planner. Now we're just going to walk away and we'll come back once this is all finished and we will make that gravy and we're going to serve it on brown rice. So I think it's going to be great. All right, this has been simmering, I guess you could call it, slow cooking for about 6 hours now. I did bump it down to the low because we had to go out and do chores and things. Now we're back and it's time to move on to the next step. So hopefully this retained enough liquid. I'm not much of a slow cooker person, so I wasn't sure if I should really be adding to it or not. It's supposed to create its own juices, right? Oh, that is looking gorgeously cooked for shanks. And I will admit, shanks are something that are not my favorite thing to eat. So now what we have to do is take these shanks out. We're going to set them to the side while we empty everything else out of this slow cooker pot here. As always, there's a starving cat present. We're going to strain out all the fruit and that sort of stuff and get just the liquid. Any excess fat, hopefully we'll get it off. I don't think there's going to be much fat, to be honest. And then we're going to make a gravy out of that. So you can see here, we almost got that 1.5 cups and very little fat on there or grease. I'm not even going to worry about skimming it off the top. We're just going to take that up to the 12 ounce there. I'm just going to add our tablespoon of cornstarch, stir it up, put it into the pot here, and we're going to just get that to a simmer for 2 minutes so that it thickens up. Add our fruit back in and pour it over top of these shanks, which will be sitting on a lovely bed of rice. All right, does that not look unbelievably, I could work in like a fancy restaurant. I'm pretty impressed with this, so hopefully it tastes as good as it smells. I know I always say that and you guys can't actually smell it. I made sure to get a little bit of the fruit, a little bit of the meat, a little tiny bit of rice. You know, we're watching how much carbs we have, so don't want to add too much rice. It's going to be hot. Jury's out on this one. It's good. The one thing I'm thinking is it's not sweet enough. I think I probably should add a little bit more of my stevia powder. It's really hard to gauge that when you're first time cooking a recipe because you don't know how much to use. I also don't know what this recipe is supposed to taste like. So it is good. I was just expecting it to be sweeter with all that fruit and stuff. So maybe a little bit more of the stevia powder. But all in all, a healthy, wonderful meal. So that was the first recipe out of this low-carb slow cooker book. Not disappointed. The meat tastes amazing. It absorbed all those flavors. It's more the syrupy sauce that I thought was going to be sweet tasting and fruity. So spicy fruity lamb, I'm going to say a 7. So that's what I'm writing in here right now on my book, 7 out of 10, because if this makes it back to the thrift store for somebody else at some point in time, there's nothing better than a whole bunch of notes. As I do in numerous videos, I'm coming back. I'm not retracting my 7 out of 10, but the one thing I'm going to say is as this is cooling, it's been maybe like 5 minutes, it's tasting better, if that makes any kind of sense. I think it needed to sit. As I said originally, the meat tasted incredible. It had absorbed that fruity kind of flavor and was really tender and just gorgeous, but I wasn't sold on the sauce. But now that it's had time to marinate, I don't know if that's the right word, with the rice and everything else and cool down, that sweetness has come out. It was almost vinegary to start with. And now that it's had time to cool, that sweetness is coming out. So I'm not going to change my 7 out of 10 at this point, but it may be a recipe that I come back to, and I will use a half teaspoon of the stevia powder instead of a quarter. I'm back, and I probably have stuff in my teeth. Plate's cleaned, and to be honest, I'm going to upgrade it to a 7.5. It still could use some tweaking and some work, but I don't want to undercredit it because once we let it sit, it really came together. Chris and I were talking as we were sitting at the table eating, and I said I should just sit the camera on the stand and just roll it, because the stuff that comes out of our mouths as we're talking about the meal would have been really useful for you guys. So I'll remember that for the next one.